Welcome to the Mother May I podcast with Frank and Irene on Strong Island Entertainment. Gee, I hope I didn't make a mistake with these two. They promised me they'd bring in some really good guests. Well, anyway, here's Frank and Irene. You're on.
Welcome to Mother May I podcast with Frank and Irene. I'm Irene. That handsome devil is Mr. Frank Conniff, the birthday boy. Happy belated birthday, sweet boy.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
And I know you've got some exciting news to talk about with this milestone birthday. You are now eligible for
Medicare. I am totally, and it's amazing. I'm 65 and I'm still smoking hot. I can't believe it.
You're fucking smoking hot. When you said you were eligible for Medicare, I got a little moist. That's the only time we use that word.
That's covered. They cover that in Medicare because no one my age gets moist, so they don't have to worry about it.
I know that it probably did you. I of course don't have a car now, Frank, so I need to get a car, and I have to take you out for a birthday dinner because I wanted to do it on your actual birthday. Did you get to see your family at all for your birthday?
Oh, I didn't see anyone. It was just a regular day, but it was really good though because so many people
I saw
on Twitter were so sweet, and it was I was worried because this is my first birthday after being banned from Facebook, and I used to love my birthday on Facebook because people, they know about it instantly, like when they see it, and I would get all kinds of nice birthday wishes. Of course, Facebook, being the fascists that they are, they took that away from me, and so, but then Twitter really came, and Instagram too. They really came through for me.
It came through in a clutch situation, Frank. So I guess people knew it was your birthday now from Facebook because you still come up as the birthday boy on Facebook.
I don't know. I actually, because of the Facebook situation, I shamelessly tweeted that it was my birthday.
I love you. Good for you, Frank. You got a lot of fucking love. You did. Fuck everybody. Celebrate you. I'm so glad your dad didn't pull out. Your mother kept you. You are everything to me, Mr. Conniff. I'll tell you that.
My dad always considered the night I was conceived one of his favorite blackout drunks. So.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Well, it just goes to show you sometimes fucking being blackout drunk leads to fabulous and wonderful things, even though David Crosby wasn't there. And I know you're very upset about that.
Oh, but David Crosby is always there in spirit in my birthday. And I think that's a really good segue to pick up.
I think so too.
To bring on the man who made the whole David Crosby at my birthday possible. Our friend Jen Haggerty had a big part of that too, but it was at John Fugelsang's house that the legendary birthday party happened. So let's bring him on.
John Fugelsang, everybody, our friend, our pal, bring him on. You know him from his show on Sirius, Tell Me Everything. He is one hell of an extraordinarily funny comic, and he's still not on screen. I don't know what's going on here.
What the hell?
To get this right with Mr. Fugelsang, okay? Mr. John Fugelsang, everybody.
Hi. Greetings. Aloha from Hawaii.
Greetings. Aloha from Hawaii. Oh, my God. I didn't realize that you were still there, John.
No, that's just my favorite Elvis special. Aloha from Hawaii. I have to rest. Okay. I can't stop saying it. Yeah. No, I'm still in Hawaii. I am still in Hawaii. I'm still in Maui. I wanted to come to a place where the native albinos would call me pale. So here I am.
The Hawaii background there is beautiful, I must say.
It really is.
Thank you, Frank. I was going for outdoors and the beach, but I talked to your producer and something noise, something quality of stream. So I'm here in a dark room for you, but I'm glad you like it.
And we appreciate it because you are definitely, I mean, I'm sure like the last thing you needed was another fucking podcast. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I would do anything for you guys. In fact, here, I'll try and see if I can show you if it's not too bright. I wanted to do it outdoors, but the waves are too loud. But here's
So
my
now,
balcony.
Was that
if you can
Charmy? Was
see
that
it.
Charmy? Charmy, hi!
Yeah,
Oh my God, look how
Charmy's
beautiful.
got it. There we go. See, that's
Okay,
that's
now,
my
this
view.
is a podcast, and you can also see it, but it's mostly a podcast. But if you could see the background that John Fugelsang is so lucky to be a part of, it's amazing. He's in Hawaii, he's in Maui, beaches, palm trees, beautiful weather. We got like a shitload of rain here, John. You're lucky you missed it.
I know you had enough rain to kill an LA person last night. It was
I had the one gig I've had all year was last night. The one time I left my house to go to Brooklyn, which was a death zone last night, was last night. I went to Littlefield in a great club in Brooklyn, did a show with Dave Hill and our friend Liz Mealy, who's such a great comedian. And by the way, while she was on stage, everyone got the notice on their phone. And by the way, it was the first ever emergency flash flood warning that's ever been issued in New York.
Yes.
Really? The first one?
Yeah. The National Weather Service has never done one for the New York City area before.
New York City metropolitan area. And I think like looking back now, like this show last night we did, it never should have happened. Everybody should have been told, don't go out and do anything. But I think it's just indicative of how we're so not prepared for climate change, just the same way our infrastructure isn't, where the whole city floods now when we get these storms. And so everybody was, I mean, sensible people stayed home. I went out and did this gig, but
you're a comedy horse.
But I don't think people like us who live in a place like New York, I don't think we get the full gravity of what's happening to our planet,
Exactly. You're absolutely right.
I mean,
go ahead, John.
Well, the scientific truth is that the oceans are warmer. They're getting warmer. So we should expect more hurricanes and more ferocious hurricanes. But I don't want to be too superstitious. I'm not a superstitious person, but I do think we have to look at the deeper cause, which is God is still punishing New York for Donald Trump. And that's not going to stop anytime soon.
I know. For a long time, God left New York alone because we don't have trailer parks here. Because we know
God was like, hands off, everybody. Yeah. I mean, there were the 9/11 attacks. But that, of course, we know now was God punishing America for televangelists. Now, with this, I think God is still punishing. I thought it was the heat all summer. This is what I call Ivanka Trump weather, Frank. You know what that means. It's very hot and very unpleasant. But this is a whole new level now.
Yeah.
It is. It's scary, and it is climate change. Frank, did you have a hard time because getting home? Did you take the subway?
You know what? I didn't, and thank God I could afford to take an Uber, which was as expensive as fuck.
You got that kind of fucking cash, Frank.
Just to get from Brooklyn, not even because of the storm, just to get from Brooklyn to New York on an Uber is really expensive. And thank God I have the means to do it, because if getting home by subway was my only plan, I would have been totally fucked, Right.
So there goes that
by the time I went home, the subways were all closed and they were flooded, and they shut down the entire system last night.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. I was going to say there goes that $20 that you made for the spot, Frank.
They Venmo'd it to me, and I got home. So
well, the levees held in Louisiana this week. The power grid didn't, but Louisiana didn't flood. New York and New Jersey got the flooding instead. I saw cars floating around in Rego Park. And by the way, New York set our all-time rainfall record 10 days ago with Henri, and broke it again last night.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so crazy. And also, in addition to this flash flooding that we got the warning, we also got, like, I remember like a couple of 3 weeks ago, maybe I was driving. I've seen this a couple times on my phone, tornado watches.
Yeah, there was a tornado in New Jersey.
I never saw before.
There was one in New Jersey last night, literally.
Yep.
Which improved the state. But no, I'm kidding. I love Jersey. But
really?
There was a terrible tornado in Jersey, and it didn't have Easy Pass either. So I hope it gets a fine. Yeah, it's terrible. And again, like, you know, these are the same people who deny climate science, because there's no debate about it, right? Like, I believe in climate change. No, we mean you believe climate change. Like, you believe the sky is blue. It's science. You don't believe it. It's actually happening. There's just industry-funded skeptics of climate science. And the same people who want to tell us that they believe that the unborn are special and sacred are the ones who want to say they don't give a what we call fuck about the unborn by denying climate change.
You're absolutely right, John. And you know what? It's nice to know that the people that don't believe in pro-choice are also now aborting themselves by not getting the vaccination.
Yeah.
So there you go. Abortion.
You know what? I was actually gonna, you know, tell John, you know, I know that you're a very liberal person, John, but you work in talk radio, and I don't know if you've heard this. There's a lot of openings lately for conservative talk radio hosts, because they're all dying, anti-vaxxer radio, because they're all dying of COVID.
Wow, you know, it wasn't funny at first, but then you explained it, and that made the death so much funnier. Yeah.
Daytime abortions, I like it.
It's really true. I mean, every day we get to have a new tribute to a different anti-vaxxer conservative who has now died. Again, if you don't get a vaccine and don't wear a mask, you are not pro-life. If you deny the science of climate change, you do not care about the unborn. But right now, as you guys know, I mean, these are the people who you know, want to deny climate change, but they want people to have more guns. Now, if you're a girl, a child in Texas, and you are raped, if you don't do anything about it in 6 weeks, the state will force you as a child to bear your racist baby. We've got the guns everywhere. These are the same people who fought for torture, who wanted preemptive war, who want access to AR-15s for the mentally ill, penalty people, the drones people, the nukes people. These are the insurrection people. Pro-lifers will fucking kill us. The pro-life people are trying to kill us all. Pro-lifers are trying to kill everyone. So much pro-life.
I know. Another beautiful, beautiful irony or hypocrisy, but the hypocrisy is nonstop. It's almost redundant to mention it. But Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, who signed this thing into law and who has COVID, he is treating it with a drug that was developed from fetal tissue. So there you go.
There you go. Wow. There you have it. That is.
So he's willing to let, you know, abortions help him with his COVID, but he doesn't want anyone to Texas.
He's like a fucking vampire. He's willing to use the abortion fetus for his for his COVID, exactly. But he doesn't believe in a woman's right to choose. It's disgusting. Okay. I don't think that I can't even wrap my head around there, even around that concept, even though I live in a place where people fully embrace it. And just, I mean, it's unbelievable to me. This is kind of where I live, and I'm getting kind of disgusted by it. I really am. I'm getting sick and tired of walking into the store when there are mask mandates everywhere and people aren't wearing a mask. Hello, John.
I think
Fugelsang.
John froze and he's going to have to log back on, it looks like.
Okay. No, Frank,
what about you, Irene? I heard Staten Island got it really bad last night, too.
Yeah, Staten Island really got just a horrifying storm. I didn't think it was that bad. I'm going to be honest. I kind of gifted myself with a long extended snooze while you were fucking swimming to a spot. I was at home resting and doing absolutely nothing. And then I woke up this morning and there were tree branches and just umbrellas strewn all over the place. So we got it pretty bad. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I didn't expect it, but it's like you said, Frank, it's a very good point. Climate change is real. When are we going to start trusting in science and stop listening to these QAnon stupid conspiracy theorists that are the same people that don't believe in the vaccination, the same people that believe that a woman doesn't have a right to choose, the same people that are raping the women that have to keep the rape babies, and often in many, many cases. When are we going to be able to just fucking get that sickening, deleterious thinking out of society? I just can't.
You know what my answer to that, and it's an honest, sincere answer. Not in our lifetime would be my answer to that, because we have a whole, and I hate to say this, but my generation, like, and I hope I live for a long time, but my generation has to die off. That will be a big help, because it's people my age and people from my generation and before and a little bit after who have all the fucked up attitudes, who have all the anti-science attitudes, have all of the racism, the sexism. We were the generation that, like, I mean, there was progress for sure during my lifetime, but it's like younger people are.
It's not fast enough. It really fucking infuriates me. Does anybody know how it feels to be fucking raped and then to have a goddamn lifelong reminder? It's so fucking sickening. And I was reading that they actually make you look at the sonogram.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's been going up. That's been happening for a while. Yeah.
Right. I mean, all of it is just so sickening, but I think you're right. I think that it's small baby steps, but we have like people that are not only Republicans disgusting conservatives in the GOP, but we also have people like Joe Rogan, who is like this irresponsible prick that has millions of followers. Yeah. Millions of followers, and he is promoting things that are like completely baseless. First of all, he was an anti-vaxxer. I said that and I got panned by a lot of people for saying that. The truth of the matter is that he did tell his audience that young people don't need the vaccination
He's a total anti-vaxxer. And
exactly, thank you.
He gives, he's full of misinformation. And, you know, he's a fellow comedian, and I don't like to attack other comedians. Even if I don't like their comedy, I don't like to publicly attack them. Yeah. And I've never attacked him as a comedian because I actually don't know that I haven't really seen his stand-up, to tell you the truth. But I know that he's a guy who's been doing comedy for decades and probably is devoted to the craft and everything. And so I should respect him on that level as a fellow comedian. But as a podcaster, he's given platforms to people like Alex Jones, and he spread all of this incredible disinformation, and he has the biggest platform of anybody. You know, he has the most successful show, and he just uses it. And maybe that's part of the success of it, because there's a big market for that kind of thing. So it's just very perplexing to me, but I can't respect him on that level, and I have to speak out against him. If he was just a hack comedian, I would never say anything publicly about him. Because
you just silently feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, but I do say fuck him, and I'm not afraid.
Yeah, I agree. Fuck him. Totally.
Fuck him. You have a fucking large platform, and you're going around fucking telling people that if you're young and healthy, and that they don't have to get the vaccination, as if COVID is biased and doesn't attack young and healthy children. Plenty of young and healthy children, babies, infants have died. And then when he gets rebuked for it, then he starts backpedaling. At this point, his audience, we know who his following is predominantly, not people that are going to support science. I'm sorry. It's more of like that crazy, conspiracy theory platform. So it's like, for me, they're not going to believe what he said. And even if he backpedals and says now that you should get the vaccination, in most cases, let me see what John just said. In most cases, they're going to listen to his first word, Frank. Mm-hmm. So anyway, but there's a lot of buggery shit going in the world. We've lost John Fugelsang, so I'm trying to see what he's saying, Frank, and it says right here, let me see if I got a text from him. He's in Hawaii. I don't feel that bad for him. I really don't. Let me see what he's saying here. or if Bobby could get him back on. Geez, I'm not getting anything. Let me see. Joining you by phone. Hang on. Okay, so he's going to be coming back on, and he's back. Thank God. Okay.
I don't, where is he? I don't see him.
Well, he just texted me that he's back, so I think Bobby's going to let him back in. Do you notice that I have a different setting, Frank? I'm in an office.
Is that like your steam room or something? What is that?
You cracked me up. Oh my God, I'm in a sauna, Frank. That's right.
Sauna? Wow.
Frank, oh my God, he's back. Thank God. Frank, you're so hysterical. This does look like a sauna. So, Mr. Fugelsang, what happened? We lost you.
Hi. I'm so sorry. I want to apologize to the governor of Texas for my thoughtless comments. I didn't mean any of it. And yes, Irene, I know that I actually think I filmed a gay porn there at one point with Adam Sank in the room you're in now. That's how much it looks like a sauna.
I know. It does have that aesthetic. I didn't know. This is hot. I like it. So, John, what about a school? When does that start up again?
Oh God, I should have thought of that before I came to Hawaii. You're right. I think it starts on the 13th of this month.
On the 13th. So what's going to happen is, are you going to send him to school, or is he going to do homeschooling?
What's going to happen is that we are never going to reach herd immunity this year because of all the douchebags who screamed about herd immunity last year. I think when I got cut off, I was telling you how the pro-lifers will fucking kill us all. And the pro-lifers are still trying everything they can do to have a lot less life out there running around. So yeah, we're going to start going back to school. And I think what's going to happen with my kids' school is what'll happen with most schools. A lot of stop and start. We'll probably do a few weeks in school, then have to come home for 2 weeks when someone in class has a relative who gets COVID. The one bit of good news I've seen is that the vaccine hesitancy numbers are beginning to go down. So maybe more people will be less selfish and just get the damn shot. But as it is now, the vaccines are like democracy. America has it. The rest of the world wants it. We don't use it. So I don't even know. It was rough. I tried to be a good pandemic parent during the lockdown. But that was when my kid was in 2nd grade. Now my kid's about to start 4th grade. This is still going on. I know. It's like it's dragging on like a Kardashian career. It should be long over by now, but it's still happening.
I can't believe that he's in 4th grade. Oh my God, that's crazy. Unbelievable. Yeah. So
when the pandemic began, when the pandemic started, I had a little boy, and now I have a boy. That's how long this has been going on. I'm old enough to remember the first time Joe Biden won the 2020 election. I'm old enough to remember Chris Matthews having a TV show warning us about vape pens. That's how old I am.
and also,
and you have a birthday coming up.
Remember the Ebola hysteria?
Yeah.
That I remember Chris Matthews was like really critical of Obama. Like one person ended up dying, I think, or two people.
Right.
Well, as you know, the media is not liberal. The media is terrified of being called liberal.
Oh, we got a whole. I'd love to talk to you about this. I've been wanting to talk to you about this because we got a whole kind of nostalgic trip over the last few weeks back to a look at what the media was like in the run-up to the Iraq War. It all came roaring back with the coverage of the Afghanistan pullout, and it just reminded us of how the mainstream media is so pro-war and they love war so much. And Joe Biden making a very brave decision, I thought, and a really good decision to get out of Afghanistan. And they covered that way more. The Texas abortion thing just came out of nowhere to most news consumers. The media didn't cover that at all. They were too busy going on and on about, oh my God, how can you end this 20-year war? Give it another 20 years. Come on.
I know.
We'll get it right.
Killing.
Yeah, and someone posted a thing that Thomas Friedman wrote in like 2002 or 2000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 2002. And he said, he was talking about just relax. Afghanistan's going to be fine. And he literally said in this column, give war a chance. He literally said that.
We haven't actually legally given war a chance in this country in 80 years. It'll be 80 years this December since the last time America declared war legally. And I'm with you, Mr. Conniff. I'll believe the media is liberal when they cover labor as much as they cover scandal, when they cover anti-war protests as much as they cover pro-war generals.
Right.
You know, they had their collapsed building porn, and now they've had their Afghanistan mayhem porn, and then they had hurricane porn after that. So it could be forgotten anytime soon. But yeah, you know, the media's bias is eyeballs. The media's bias is clicks. It's ratings. It always has been. The media is not liberal. There are liberals who work in media, but the media is only as liberal as the corporations that own it. And if you want proof of that, go to any Labor Day parade in any and see how many media helicopters you see covering the Labor Day parades. It'd be fascinating. The answer would be none. No one talks about labor issues in this country, only slightly more than they talk about environmental issues.
Right. Labor
Well,
Day.
we were talking to, go ahead, Frank, go.
Labor Day coverage, and I'm not even making this up. It's, you don't hear about Labor Day as much since Jerry Lewis stopped doing the telethon.
Yeah, the only time the media ever talks about the word labor is when, you know, Kim Kardashian has another baby. That's the only time they say the word.
And it's
that's
too bad.
the only time, by the way, that's the only time a Kardashian ever experiences labor, when it's time to pump out another NBA superstar. So,
That's good, John, you bet.
yeah.
Oh, come on.
Frank,
lay
we
off
were
the
talking about
Kardashians.
this.
They're good, solid of the earth people. Come on.
Yeah, they are. They're like you and
They
me.
are solid sweatshoppers.
I actually, it just occurred to me that it's a shame we don't have the Labor Day telethons anymore, because we could see the Trump family screw over Jerry's kids and steal their money. You know.
And still, yeah, I mean, they're good at that with St. Jude. I mean, how fucking, at what point do you say these guys are monsters? They're stealing children and money from cancer. I mean, come on.
Well, let's be fair, Irene. That was a long time ago. They were stealing money from children.
That's right.
They
That
upgraded in the White House. They upgraded to actually stealing children. So let's have some perspective here, okay? They got a lot better than stealing money from children, all the way up to stealing children. And forced hysterectomies on top of it. Pro-life, suck out your baby bag. We're so pro-life. Yeah, this is what we're up against. I mean, it's the same forces, it's the same people. I think it's possible mentally to walk and chew gum at the same time on this, and to say, yeah, you know, we can criticize Biden and Blinken for not having a plan in place for the Taliban to take over in 11 days. The intercepted cable shows that Blinken knew it was possible the Taliban could take over this quickly. All praise for the greatest airlift of humans in the history of humanity. We've never evacuated more people from a dangerous place in history than we did there. We can still criticize.
We're losing him.
John got censored. John, this is a liberal. You're being censored for criticizing Biden.
Okay.
Well, I want to hear from everyone who's criticizing Biden, though.
Right. John, you're freezing up, sweetie. So it's and maybe you could move around and see if you, there we go. Okay.
I'll move around. Hang on. I'll move around more. You
were making a really good point, and it was completely lost because of all the freezing. But Frank, we already discussed this when we talked about Mark Zuckerberg and CNN, when you were talking about how he was a great supporter to Trump. Remember that? With media.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was a really great point.
All you had to say is, like, you know, people who supported Donald Trump don't get to criticize anything about Joe Biden and Afghanistan. It was Mike Pompeo who negotiated the surrender deal with the Taliban, where they freed 5,000 Taliban troops from prison, including Baradar, who's now going to run the country. They were forces not invite the Afghan government, the puppet Afghan government, to come. So the puppet Afghan government knew their gig was up. They were fleeing the country with suitcases full of cash. They hadn't paid the military in months. Now, I respect that Joe Biden has a really good talking point with, why should we be there fighting for people who won't fight for themselves? But the reality is, these troops hadn't been paid in months. and they saw their own government fleeing the country with suitcases full of cash. So the Taliban comes rolling in with their weaponry. What are you going to do? Fight for a government that doesn't exist anymore, or say, please don't kill my family, have these arms? I mean, all of this was predictable, but people who defend Donald Trump or Ronald Reagan or George W. Bush don't get to criticize it. It's really, really simple. Joe Biden is the first president of my lifetime to not bullshit us about Afghanistan. And I think he'll take his licks for the loss of life and how awful it's been. But like, Frank, to your point, I keep hearing the media talk about this botched withdrawal, as opposed to the botched invasion, the botched occupation, right, the botched escape of bin Laden from Tora Bora, the botched bribes for the botched phony Afghan civilian government. I mean, at what point do we just say botch, please, and get out of there? How many more American troops and private contractors died? Twice as many died in Afghanistan.
I didn't hear in all the recent mainstream media coverage, like George W. Bush's name like barely came up when they were talking about the mess in Afghanistan, and someone like did a study of it, and I think in the last few years, like all of the major networks, like devoted like maybe 2 minutes altogether to Afghanistan coverage. And then this happens, and they're all like, oh, it's so horrible what's happening in Afghanistan. This is an outrage. And meanwhile, they paid no attention to it. They had no interest in letting the public pay attention to it. We, the public, didn't pay attention to it. We were like, just took it for granted that there was a war that cost $300 million a day that was just going to go on forever. And that's so, you know, I think Joe Biden did a bold thing. I think it took leadership. Right now with what's happening in Texas, I want to see Joe Biden go bolder. I don't know if he is, because he is a very traditional politician in many ways. It's his strength, and it's also his drawback. But I would love to see him like radically do whatever he can, like pack the court, add more Supreme Court justices, fight to get DC statehood, do all kinds of things, that because that's the kind of action that is really required right now. He's really, you know, he's very devoted to the whole, let's work things out, let's get the Republicans on board. And he's had surprising success, you know, getting like a watered down infrastructure bill and stuff like that. I know how difficult that is, but I think in terms of these issues like abortion and this attack on the rights of of women who are our fellow citizens, and who the Republicans basically want to enslave them, I think he has to get really bold and radical. And I don't know if he's going to do it, but I hope he does.
I agree. I'll just say one last thing. Afghanistan was our biggest socialist jobs program in the last 20 years. I'm sorry to see that end, but it was like a reality show that was on for 20 years, and nobody was watching it.
Right.
Nobody liked it.
Right.
The ratings were terrible. It cost way too much, and it kept getting renewed every year anyway.
Right.
When Ann Coulter came out and said that Joe Biden was the only president with the balls to get us out of Afghanistan, and I couldn't read the rest of the tweet because all these frogs were falling from the sky, and I couldn't see my laptop anymore.
Yeah, he's surprisingly bold. You know what I mean? Like, he even surprises me. Like, he is unflappable, and he. I don't know, Frank. I think he may surprise all of us. You know,
I hope he does. And you know, I said when this whole Afghanistan thing was happening, I tweeted that, and it was the truth, that Joe Biden was not my first choice in the 2020 Democratic primary, but he should have been my first choice, because I think he's really stepped up, and I think he's really been impressive despite his whatever drawbacks he has, which he does. But and I think that people who are like far left people or whatever, who still hate him and who were really disappointed that he got in and Bernie didn't get in, or someone else didn't get in, they should be happy with themselves, because they're the ones who sent Joe Biden to the left. Joe Biden is way more left now than he ever was during his whole career, because Joe Biden is a politician who like sees which way the wind is going. He's always been that way, and he follows it. And the way things are now, things are more left in politics now, and that's the left who worked. They worked hard to get Bernie elected or whoever they worked to get elected. It didn't happen, but they did alter the landscape of our politics, and that's very impactful.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
true.
He is a lot more progressive, and of course, it's helpful that Kamala Harris is by his side, but I think he's evolving, and I have 100% faith in him. I really did. Now, I feel like you, Frank, in the beginning, he wasn't my first choice. I was afraid he wasn't going to be progressive enough, but I think he's stepping up.
Yeah,
look,
he's making hard decisions, and he's also using his considerable skill at politics is working for him. Although I think that's the thing that might hamper him in terms of being really bold, because he always wants to make the kind of like savvy political maneuver to make things happen, because that's the world he's grown up in.
If they don't get rid of the filibuster and pass voting rights reform, it's all for nothing. And
Right.
To that end, they should also you've either got to impeach 4 justices off the Supreme Court, which you could do. I mean, you can't do it, but Clarence Thomas, for his wife's activism alone, he should be thrown off. Neil Gorsuch is in a stolen seat. Kavanaugh lied under oath. Amy Coney Barrett, 60 million Americans are already voted when they rushed her through. If you can't get rid of those 4, and again, look at the Supreme Court, right? It's 6-3, 6-3, 6 evil people, and of the 6, you got one of them, Clarence Thomas, who was put in there by a president who opposed the Civil Rights Act of 64. Then you have Alito and Roberts, who were put in there by a president who lost the popular vote. And then you have Coney Barrett and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, who were put in there by another president who lost the popular vote. So of the 6, 5 of them were put in by presidents the majority of Americans rejected. And
Right.
The other one was put in there by a president who opposed the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That's how messed up our Supreme Court is. They don't represent the will of the American people any more than the Republican Party does. And if Joe Biden doesn't pack the courts, if they don't get rid of the filibuster and pass voting rights reform, because they are working in every Confederate state to make it very hard, a little bit here, a little bit there, for some people to vote. That's all these laws are about. The only voter fraud was by Trump and his winged monkeys. And they don't care about actual voter fraud. They care about making it a little harder for Black folks, poor people, some seniors, college kids to actually vote. So whether Joe Biden's partisan or not, it doesn't matter. They have 12 months, 14 months to do something. And here's the deal. I'm afraid the Democratic Party is going to spend the next 14 months telling us how horrible this Texas abortion law is, fundraising off of how horrible this Texas abortion law is, and doing nothing to enshrine women's rights in a federal law, so we don't have to worry about Texas doing laws like this anymore. Either they're going to actually do something to protect women's rights, or they're going to campaign and fundraise off of the threat to women's rights.
I hope they do both. I hope they do both.
I'd love to see them do both. I'd love to see them do both. I want to see what they bring up.
Because they'd be taking a big page out of the Republican playbook with what you're talking about fundraising, because it's been pointed out many times that Roe v. Wade was the greatest fundraising thing that ever happened to the Republican Party.
Well, for the Democrats too.
No, but the original, the original decision of Roe v. Wade of banning abortions, it started all kinds of movements in the Republican Party. It resulted in incredible fundraising. They've based everything on it while still, paying for their mistresses and girlfriends to have abortions.
While still calling themselves Christian, but ignoring the fact that the Bible's not against abortion, but Christ was against the death penalty. It's not about being Christian. Right. And I don't even think it's about controlling women or hating women. I think that gives them too much credit. They're sociopaths, but they only care about themselves. They care about their jobs. And they know that the political system in this country the last 40 years is conservatives get elected by promising they will criminalize women's abortion rights. And the Democrats have given it all away. The Democrats don't use the right language. Like, we'll protect. They're not banning abortion. They're banning safe, legal abortions. There'll still be plenty of those good old-fashioned, unauthorized, unregulated abortions done by car mechanics in back alleys around the country. They're creating thousands of new jobs, these Republicans, for Dr. Kermit Gosnells in these back butcher clinics. But, again, it's not a Christian thing. Criminalizing abortion rights has nothing to do with the teachings of Christ, and Democrats are too
doesn't have
cowardly
anything
to
to
bring
do
that
with
up.
God's teachings either. John, God gave us the right to have free will. Okay, we should be able to make our own fucking choices as people. So it
If you
doesn't
read
have
the Bible, you'll see how much God cares about the unborn, folks. Not a whole lot. In fact, he drowned every unborn child on earth one day with a flood because he felt like it. He was in a bit of a mood. Have you heard about Passover? God's not that big on the lives of children, folks. God says life begins with first breath in Genesis, and states that a woman's life has more value to him than a fetus in Exodus. It's all made up bullshit that has nothing to do with Jesus, who again said, welcome the stranger, who said, take care of the sick, take care of the poor, be kind to those in prison, forgive your enemies. They don't want Christian values. They just care about themselves, and that's all conservatism means. It's just making selfishness look like a virtue, and the Democrats are going to be playing defense for the rest of our lives on this. They can pass a law federally, or at least try to, and go down in flames doing it, and let people know what's at stake. And I'll get off this after this thing. We've been saying, and we talked about this before, what are the Democrats going to do to get people to show up and vote in the midterms? Kevin McCarthy, who is so mediocre, he makes me long for the wisdom and judgment of Speaker John Boehner. Oh, how I miss what a sage, wonderful man John Boehner was with Kevin McCarthy. He's picking out wallpaper for his Speaker of the House office. I think, Mr. Conniff, I think, Ms. Bremis, these Texas Republicans have just found a way to guarantee every woman in America and every man with a soul in America shows up to vote in the midterms next
That's
year.
the silver lining. That's always this. That was the silver lining of Trump too. That not to say that there was any, but he did. But people went out and fucking voted. And so that might be the result of this. But we have to be on alert though, that when people do go out and vote in the midterms, there might be criminals who bring them water, and we have to make sure that we fight against that, because would be a horrible thing for people to hydrate while they're waiting.
Will not stand. This will not stand. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, but it's incentive, and that's what we need. We need incentive. You're right, Frank. Even with Trump, like everybody came out and vote, because there's always going to be.
But also, that's the pandemic too. Let's not let one of the silver linings of the pandemic was that millions of us were staying home watching the news, and it wasn't just news nerds like us paying attention to the election. And so we had the highest voter turnout in the history of this country, and it happened during a global pandemic, because we were all watching more news and paying more attention. I'm not saying the news is great, but I'm saying large voter turnout is what we need. And they say people don't turn out to vote against things, they vote for things, but I think people turned out to vote against Donald Trump. I think Joe Biden's greatest achievement was getting millions of liberals to vote for Joe Biden. There's not a day goes by. I mean, Joe Biden in a coma, Joe Biden with an alien bursting from his chest is better. Joe Biden playing air guitar and singing Rock You Like a Hurricane is better than Donald Trump on his best day. So very grateful for that.
What in terms of winning in 2020, what Joe Biden had going for him, and I say this seriously, in terms of getting elected, a big asset for him was that he was a white man.
Yep.
Because I was an Elizabeth Warren supporter. She was my first choice.
She was my first choice too.
But now, looking back on it, if she had won the nomination, I think there's a really good chance Trump would have defeated her, because the misogyny in our media and in our society is so overwhelming that I think we like to think we're at a more enlightened place now, but I think we're still in the dark ages in America in terms of electing a woman to a higher office. And I think it's a miracle that Kamala Harris got as far as she did, to vice president.
You're absolutely right, Frank. And Elizabeth Warren would have had a tough time because there's just systemic misogyny. Look at the fact that we still have to.
Joe Biden being the traditional white male, looking guy. Like it worked in his favor because
moderate too, a moderate.
yeah,
I mean,
moderate. That was very
always,
that was non-threatening to people.
It made people feel like safe, like it was a safe move, and it wasn't too bold enough that they would. It was not too progressive enough. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so much deep-seated misogyny. I mean, the fact that it's 2021 and abortion rights is still fucking something that we have to fight for every single day. It's crazy. So
that's going to continue. That's going to continue as long as Christianity has been prostituted to make people think it's about putting women in jail for abortions, which is all they're fighting for. They're not fighting for the unborn. If they cared about the unborn, they'd fight climate change. If they cared about all life is sacred, they'd wear masks and get vaccines.
That's right.
They are fighting to put women in jail. And to Frank's point, you know, at Republican gatherings, anti-Hillary merch and anti-Obama merch are still outselling anti-Biden merch. They haven't been able to get the same kind of hate against Biden because he is a white male. So what are they using? That he's old. They're being ageist. Let's see how senility jokes play with the Hannity audience, shall we? I mean, the median audience of Sean Hannity is dead, and the young side is 72. So ageism, and liberals do ageism too, but literally that's what they're going after. And you know what? I get it. Biden's old. That's fine.
Oh, come on, they're all old. Who gives a shit?
He's got more energy. Biden's got more energy than half the 40-year-olds I know. Bob Dylan's older than him and was still doing 100 shows a year. McCartney's older than Joe Biden. Ringo's older than Joe Biden. So go ahead, let him be ageist. Let's see how that works. It's only going to work inside the bubble. You know, I think in a year from now, Biden may look a lot better because more people will hopefully be vaccinated. Hopefully variants won't have killed us all by then. Afghanistan will be a year in the past, and you guys know we have no attention span in this country. No one's going to care about it then, but they'll care about what Texas did with women's rights. And just wait until women start getting locked up. I mean, you conceivably in Texas, you could rape a girl, and then when she goes to terminate the pregnancy, you could call in the tip to have her put in jail for terminating your child, and you could make 10 grand. As long as they don't find out you were the rapist, that could really happen. You could be paid for turning in someone that you impregnated when you raped them. That is the playing field. I'm waiting for any one of our right-wing friends to tell me what that's got to do with Christianity or with American values. They've overplayed their hand. For years, politicians talked a good game on abortion, and they'd be like Scott Walker. They'd have these ridiculous laws they put up, like all women's health clinics have to have emergency room admittance procedures. Stuff that made no sense. They always knew it would get overturned in appeals, but they would do it so they could put out the fundraising letters to your Aunt Racist and Uncle Drunk and just say, hey, we passed the most anti-abortion law in our state's history. Give us money. That's all they did. It's always been a racket. The right wing raises so much money off of it. Now, they've overplayed their hand. Now people are going to, 77% of Americans support abortion rights in all or some cases. I can't tell you how many conservative men have called my SiriusXM show the last couple of nights to say how wrong they and their friends find this to be. So I think, you know, just every time there's something good, you'll find something bad will come from it. But every tragedy brings out the best in a lot of people. Donald Trump brought out the best in a lot of Americans. There's people who were on the fence politically, avoiding taking a side their whole life, and they got off the fence because of Trump. I think good will come from this, but it's only going to happen if we force the Democratic Party to do stuff, because I don't think leaders lead unless their followers force them to lead.
That's right. And John, you're right. Good things do happen. Look how this, how Donald, I fucking hate him, but how his election and unearthed all the misogyny in this country, you know, so things are exposed and dealt with. And
I think Bill Clinton's election unearthed. I never knew how misogynist my country was until Hillary Clinton was the first lady. I mean, jokes are one thing, but I never knew like how deeply hateful men are of strong women. And you can criticize Hillary on a policy level all day long, but I'm talking the hatred of women that we saw.
You know what her initial, and this, I'm not making this up, the initial thing that started the Hillary hate in the media, and that just built and built over the years, the initial, the inciting incident, as they would say in a screenwriting class, was the fact that she said that she didn't want to just be a woman who baked cookies, you know, and that there was like an outrage to that. The whole idea that a woman would not want to be in the traditional role, and they would want to like actively be a part of work and government and stuff, and that she looked at being a housewife as a secondary thing. And by the way,
what did she do after that, Frank?
And by the way, as a parent, she brought up this great kid named Chelsea. So she kind of did. She kind of did well in that area too. But that was, the remark she made about cookies was the whole thing that started it, and it's just.
Then she had to show up with cookies. Then she had to show up to a campaign event.
Yeah.
The president was running. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and plus, Hillary comes from an era, and luckily it's different now. This extremely ambitious, smart woman who wanted a life in politics. The practical thing for her to do was to have her husband become the politician, and then she would work in that field and work in his administrations and stuff. Yeah. She kind of, and people even forget how unprecedented it was. Literally had never happened before of a first lady who was still a first lady running for the United States Senate. Yeah. And getting elected. That was like a revolutionary breakthrough. And that's the kind of thing that pisses the misogynists off too.
The last three Democratic first ladies. I mean, the last three Democratic first ladies.
She broke down every expectation and every tradition in that way. And they just fucking hate her for it.
He broke that glass ceiling. She absolutely did multiple times, but you're right.
Before her, Eleanor Roosevelt was like the only first lady that was kind of a politically active, Lady Bird Johnson whole thing was beautify the highway. First ladies would find their one thing that they could advocate about, with Melania, it was ruining the rose garden. That was her thing.
It was hating Christmas and snacking on diamonds. Yes, she's a lot.
And Laura Bush, who's a very smart woman. She had the whole literacy was her thing, I guess, and life.
That was even more moving because only in America would a librarian marry an illiterate, and that's why I admire Laura Bush so much.
I know, it's true. So
he's still the worst president, by the way, guys. Bush is still worse than Trump. Bush is still worse than Trump. But you're right, Frank. When Hillary was running against Trump, all the misogynists were coming up to me saying, "Oh man, you want a woman president? You really want a president who's going to be insane 5 days of the month?" And then cut to Trump, and I'm like, bitch, I would kill for a president who's only insane 5 days a month.
Exactly, yeah.
Not snorting odd Adderall and fucking peeing on his own tie and having hookers pee on him. Come on, stop. It's just disgusting. But it's also more than that. It's like Frank said, if he wasn't fucking president to begin with, we wouldn't have unearthed this racism, which was such a huge, it was
there all along. It was always there.
So you're right, John. To your point again, something
Trump
good.
Was the black light. America's the couch, and Trump was the black light that showed us what was already on the couch.
That's right. That's it. He was the black light. It's so true.
Yeah, Frank? And by couch, I mean like a couch in, like the Miami Improv Comedy condo. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to run a black light over this couch. That's
he revealed the stains that you don't want to know about.
Yeah. Comedy condo couch with like VHS porn in a closet. Like you don't want to even go near it. Trust me.
The remnants of Ollie Joe Prater's gig. You don't want to see that there.
But it really did also. But I think, all of these bad times do bring out the best in a lot of people. And the same is true of Bush. I mean, the Iraq war was awful, but I'm still inspired by what I saw in the Iraq war protests and how many people cared and came out and showed up. There's so many good people in America. And as we become less white, you'll see a lot of people flipping out. It'll bring out the worst in our fellow white people.
Well, when you were,
a lot of good coming out too.
I think you were off the air at that moment, but I was saying to Irene earlier that a big help will be when our generation dies off. Like, that's going to be the thing that really, and I hope both of us and I should say my generation because I'm older than you guys anyway.
What is your generation? What are you?
I'm a baby boomer. I'm 65.
Okay. I'm Gen X. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm the forgotten generation.
No, but I'll just speak for baby boomers. Baby boomers, we had like the Vietnam protests and all that stuff. But in my generation, there is still so much racism, so much sexism, so much misogyny, so many old attitudes that never went away and are still lingering on. And it really has to be like younger people who've younger people who've grown up around people of color, who grew up knowing a trans neighbors, knowing that gay couple that lives next door with their kids. We go to soccer with them. They're great people. They've kind of grown up with all of that around them. Whereas my generation, everything was still so separate, and people who were who had so-called subversive attitudes were hidden, and they would get in trouble, and you would lose your job if they found out you were gay and stuff like that. And that's all changed, and people, it's all normal to people now, and that's why I have more hope for Gen X and millennials and Gen Z or whatever, because they've grown up in a whole different world that's much better than the world I come from.
Well, now I got to say, Frank, if the whole thing is about waiting for your generation to die off, I guess I'm sorry I visited you in the hospital all those times last year.
Well, I, as you know, I want us to die off, but I refuse to live up to my own example. So
we want to keep Frank, though. My
and
God.
I want to be alive for several more years, but I think our generation, my generation, is really the fucking problem. And you look at our. It's unfair to single them out, but look at people like Eric Clapton and Van Morrison, who were
we were going to go there. Let's go there. Yeah.
He once venerated as these great enlightened rock stars, and you've got them being anti-vax, and at least in Eric Clapton's case, racist. And then you've got a young pop star like Olivia Rodriguez going to the White House to encourage kids to get vaxxed. It's a really stark contrast, Let
me tell you, it pains me to say, because as someone who's, defended Eric Clapton for so many years, I mean, because I love Eric Clapton and I've seen him live so many times. I finally reached a point where I said I wasn't going to see any more Clapton shows when I paid a fortune to take Charmy to see him at the Great Western Forum in LA, and he wore a t-shirt with a Nike swoosh on it the whole stage. I'm like, okay, Eric, I'm done giving you my money. But I've seen him so many times. I love him. I listen to even the later albums, but for years, you just say, well, George Harrison wasn't a very good husband to Patty, and she loved him, and that's why she left him. Well, Eric said those racist things, but B.B. King loved Eric, and Clapton was a drunk, and he was on heroin at the time, so he was an addict. I'm done defending him.
I think we make excuses for the people when we were enamored with somebody artistically, I think we just...
Me Too has taught us, and Frank, we've discussed it many times. You have to be able to separate the flawed human from the art. I will not throw out a Picasso. He was terrible to women. John Lennon was terrible to his first wife. But I don't have to watch Bill Cosby specials anymore. And I'll still listen to Clapton. I'll still listen to Van Morrison, but I'm done giving them my money. And by the way, Van Morrison is still going to do gigs at mandatory vaccine venues. Clapton has said he wouldn't even do it. Clapton will not perform at a venue where the management is trying to keep their customers and their artists and their employees safe. Think about that. Clapton just went way beyond Van, and I love Van as well. I never viewed Van as a terribly enlightened guy politically, spiritually, a long, long time ago, but he's just been an old blues and jazz artist for the last 30 years, and I've seen Van live many times, and I love him. But this level of privilege, you'd think that these two guys who make a living off of recycling black music would understand who it is, at least in America, that's getting hit so hard by this, because they're frontline workers and essential workers.
Right.
Disproportionately impacted, not because they're black, but because they are the ones who are backing up this economy, propping it up by doing the frontline jobs in customer service in our airports. Right. And a little empathy. I mean, when these conservatives, and I don't lump Van Morrison and Eric Clapton in with conservatives per se, but when these conservatives talk about, my freedoms, they mean their conveniences.
Exactly.
And when they talk about my values, they mean their taste. And when they talk about their patriotism, they mean I get to hate a lot of other Americans because I wave flags, and I get to pollute our country because I wave flags. And when they talk about their Christianity, they just mean my version of Christianity, where Jesus hates the same people I do. Everything they say is
people who are really fucked are the ones whose Christianity is Clapton is God.
Yeah, now
Clapton is for the old people in the audience.
He has gone from the king of the Delta blues to the king of the Delta variant, and that's where we're at. I told you I had a joke at the end of that, I promise.
Well, it is kind of crazy. And what I'm always extremely fucking confused by is when I see young Republicans, like my cousin's daughter. Oh, I hope she's not listening to this or ever listens to the show. I love her. Actually, she came on our show, John. You remember when I brought her on? Yeah. She's a hardcore Republican. It's like, how does that happen? You know, I remember when I was growing up.
Why is she a hardcore Republican? Why?
Because her parents are Republicans. But you know what? When I was growing up,
authoritarianism. What's the appeals? Fetuses, authoritarianism. I mean, most of what they claim isn't true. They're not the party of small government. They're not the party of family values. They're not the party of fiscal responsibility or Christianity. Like, ask her, what about this party? What does conservative mean in 2021? Because I don't know what it means.
I haven't had that talk with her because I haven't seen her, but I know that she is Republican.
Get her on the phone. I'll talk to her right now, Irene.
I have to talk to her, and it really upsets me because, you know, I just feel like she's just sort of like adopting all her mother's fucked up political views and views on life without even thinking for herself. Now, when I was growing up, what I was saying is that my parents came to this country. They were Greek immigrants. They were very accepting, I must say that. But I had scream out fights when I went to a lot of the rallies, the pro-choice rallies when I was in college. I would go to Washington. I went to the Iraq war protest. I did this, and I used to fight with my parents to try to get them to understand. I think sometimes children, and I know that you guys may not like the word have a responsibility. They don't, but for me, I felt like I actually did have an obligation to update and bring my family into another way of thinking, which after a time, they completely evolved. And I don't think that would have happened had I not been that girl yelling with my parents about racism, yelling about pro-choice, yelling because they came from a generation where they weren't reared to think that way.
Well, I don't think people should inherit political views from their parents. They should be like me and inherit alcoholism from your parents.
Thank you.
Oh,
I agree.
I agree too. But anyway,
they should be like me and inherit emotional disorders from their parents and trauma as well. And unprocessed rage. Inherit that from your parents.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Honor thy mother and thy father is the most fucked up commandment. I mean, honor thy mother and thy father sounds great until you realize, what if your dad is Mel Gibson's dad? That's all you got to know about that.
What if your dad is Mel Gibson? Period.
Well,
yeah, Mel Gibson. Jesus, what the fuck? Oh my God. Anyway, I just got the wrap up signal from Bobby, so I want to make sure, John, that you get to plug everything that you're working on, starting with the pay-per-view.
Oh, sure. Well, October 23rd, write it down. It's right around the corner in Madison, Wisconsin. We 10 years ago, we launched the Stephanie Miller Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour, and it wound up making $1 million in the first year. And we did it all across the country. And we've been joined on stage by everybody from Nancy Pelosi to Lily Tomlin to Rob Reiner. It's a real fun show. Aisha Tyler has done gigs with us, and Margaret Cho has. And so we're doing our big comeback show, I guess, in Madison at the Barrymore Theater, October 23rd, where we first began the tour. And if you can't make it, it's vaccine only. I'm not really afraid of unvaccinated people coming to our show, but it's going to be Stephanie Miller, Frangela, Hal Sparks, and myself. And if you can't make it, it'll be all streamed live on meethook.com, MEET, meethook.com. And so you can go to sexyliberal.com and get the pay-per-view. And it's going to be a 2-hour show of almost post-pandemic comedy that we thought was going to be post-pandemic. But I'm just happy to be starting to slowly get out on the road again and find new ways to coerce Mr. Conniff into leaving his house to come on the road again.
That's it. You know what, John? You were so funny. I wanted to tell you that when we were at Broadway, you were so funny. I really enjoyed your set. So we're going to have you back on to promote it.
Oh my God. And I had my...
Uh-oh. He's freezing up. Okay, he's freezing up. Frank, would you like to plug what you're working on?
My next Mad show with my Trace Billou and myself, doing a Mystery Science Theater style movie riffing, will be September 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time We're going to be riffing the classic movie, The Brain Eaters. So people should tune into that. It's $10 and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. And John, is there anything else you want to, also your show, Tell Me Everything, which is of course an extraordinary show on Sirius every night. Okay, we lost him. I'm Irene Bremis. We've had a lot of technical difficulties, but I think we had a lot of great conversation, Mr. Conniff. I just, at Irene Bremis on Twitter, Instagram, and that's about it. We'll see you next week with Carmen Lynch is going to be our guest.
Oh,
Frank.
yay.
Yay. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Love you, Frank. Thank you,
you,
John. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Mother May I podcast with Frank and Irene on Strong Island Entertainment. Check us out next week when Frank and Irene sit down with, you know what? I don't know what these two are going to do next, but we'll see you next week.